Hello. This video is for the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is part of our review for the 8th grade benchmark coming up, and also for the 8th grade STAR test. The Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem always has to do with right triangles. That's the key thing that we always need to keep in mind. And it describes the relationship between the length of the hypotenuse and the lengths of the legs. So we have, in a right triangle, we always have a hypotenuse, we always have two legs. The two legs are connected to the triangle at that right angle. So on either side of the right angle you have your legs, and then you have the hypotenuse opposite the right angle. And that hypotenuse in the right triangle is always the longest side. This is always the longest side. And so the formula we're going to use is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a is one of the legs, b is another one of the legs, and c is the hypotenuse. So you have leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. So our formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We just did that. And we know that we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side of a right triangle if we know the two other sides. So I'm going to go ahead and start out by labeling my sides, and as long as I choose A and B to be my legs, it doesn't matter which one is which because we'll still get the same answer, as long as we always know that the hypotenuse is C. So I'm going to write my formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then I'm going to fill in the parts that I know. So in this case, a is 8, so I'm going to have 8 squared plus b, which is 15 squared, and that's going to equal x squared in this problem. So 8 squared is 64, and 15 squared, it may not be something that we know by heart, but 15 squared is 225, and that's going to equal x squared. So 64 plus 225 is 289. So 289 is going to equal x squared. And we have to do the opposite of squaring, which is taking the square root. So we have to take the square root of both sides. And the square root of 289 is 17. So we're going to have x equals 17 centimeters. Okay, so this is another application of the Pythagorean theorem. We have these 4 squares. I want you to pretend like this square coming off of the hypotenuse is actually a square. I know it's a rectangle. It looks like a rectangle, but a square is a type of rectangle. Even though this rectangle doesn't have 4 sides that are equal, we're going to go ahead and pretend like it is a square. So you have a square with sides of 3, a square with sides of 4, and a square with sides of 5. What I want you to do is find the area for all three squares. And then what I want you to do is add the 2 smaller areas, and I want you to see what happens. So find out what happens, and then we'll talk about that tomorrow in class. So now we have an example problem. We have this 10-foot ladder that's leaning against a wall. The bottom of the ladder is 4 feet from the base of the wall as shown below. So we see that our right triangle is right here. And what it's trying to, or what this wants to know, or what this question is trying to ask us is, what is the height that the ladder makes it up the wall? So far, let's go ahead and just write out our formula. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then we'll label the parts we know. I'm going to go ahead and call 4 feet A. We'll call the missing part B. And we know that our hypotenuse is C. So when I fill in the parts I know, I'm going to have 4 squared plus b squared equals 10 squared. Well, 4 squared is 16. We don't know what b is yet. We know 10 squared is 100. So if I solve for b squared, I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides, and I end up with b squared equals 84. When I get to this point, I need to take the square root of both sides, because that's the opposite of squaring something, and we end up with b is roughly just a little bit more than 9. So it's going to be right around 9 feet. The ladder will touch the wall a little bit, just a little bit more than 9 feet off the ground. So we have 4 answer choices here, F, G, H, and J. And it says which group of 3 squares will form a right triangle when joined at their vertices. So this is just like that practice problem we did just a little bit ago, where I gave you the lengths of 3, 4, and 5, and then you had to find the areas of the squares and add up the areas of the 2 smaller squares. So what I want you to do here is find the area for every square. So find the area for every square and figure out which one of these answer choices fits the Pythagorean theorem. So this is a problem I want you to do yourself, but we're going to start out by at least just reading it to you. So Leland swam from the dock east 26 meters. He turned and swam another 10 meters, as shown in the diagram below. So what is the value of x, the distance Leland swam to return to the dock? So what you need to figure out is the value of x. And we see that x is part of a right triangle, so that means we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So it gives you 2 lengths, and you need to find the third. So that's all that's going to be in this video, but we have 2 more examples to do in class. So 2 examples in class. We're going to watch another video in class that demonstrates the Pythagorean theorem. And then we are going to practice this even more. So tomorrow you can expect 2 more examples, a video, and you can also expect practice. I'll see you then.